Hello everyone, myself Deepak Gupta, again joining with you on this platform of CollegeDekho.com, a specialized platform for undergraduate students. And today we will be discussing application of marginal costing, that is managerial decision making. And one of the various such decisions, one of the very important decision is whether you should make a particular product or a component in your own production facilities, or you have to acquire them, purchase them from an outsource. So we have to make a choice whether we have to make a particular product or we have to buy a particular product. So we will use the marginal costing technique to make such a decision. But before we enter into those nitties, this make or buy decision has to depend on certain factors. So what we are sharing with the notes, that normally the management is faced with the problem whether a product should be manufactured or it should be purchased. So you either have to produce it in-house or you have to acquire it from an outsource. But this decision firstly depends upon the surplus capacity that is available with the factory or not. What I'm saying, that if you need a product X, or it can also happen that you are creating a product X which use various components, and one of the component is to be decided whether it should be purchased or it should be acquired. The first and foremost decision lies whether the business has proper or required production surplus, production capacity to create such a product. That means अगर आपकी जो कैपेसिटी है वो 1 लाख प्रोडक्ट्स बनाने की है ऑफ X, and you are already going short because your demand is more than 1 lakh and you are barely able to fulfill that demand, and if you have to create that product component the one component of that product X or certain additional product, and you are already short of the capacity, then you will always go for the acquisition from an outsource because there is no capacity available. But if we understand that there is certain capacity available which you can utilize to create such a component or such additional product, or there are certain financial calculations which justifies that some part of this component, instead of being acquired from outside sources, you should produce it in-house because that will give you more revenues, then the company has to make a profitable choice. So how that profitable choice is to be done, that what we have to discuss. And to cater to such decision, we should be in a better position to understand if we have certain data. So therefore, to make you understand this, I have created this question which is perfectly valid for a make or buy decision. And if you understand this question, then you will come to know that this company AB Limited has a particular machine. Now this machine is actually denoting the production facility. This number is just for reference purposes. There's nothing so important about this, any kind of special machine it is. It is just for the reference that you have a particular machine which creates a particular kind of product, and that product manufactured is product X, which has a selling price of rupees 100 and marginal cost of rupees 60. So before we move on, we have to understand that as per the concept of marginal costing, the variable cost is the incremental cost of the product, and if it is creating a revenue, then this addition of selling price over variable cost, that is the difference between the selling price and the variable cost, that denotes the profit of the product. And this profit of the product is what you call contribution. We have discussed this earlier. So we are presuming that in the production facility there are fixed costs which will always be incurred irrespective of the fact that whether the product has been manufactured or not. So these product costs will not include the fixed cost because they are the product cost. Sorry, they are not the product cost, they are the period cost. The word is period cost. I normally use the word product cost. So as per the marginal costing scenario, this fixed cost is the period cost which will always be incurred in respective of the fact that whether the product is manufactured in-house or acquired from outsource, or this variable cost is actually the cost of the product. So if you create the product in-house, then this cost will be incurred. And if you are not creating it, you are not manufacturing it in-house but buying from certain extra source, outsource, then the variable cost will be the cost of the purchase. So what the important point of comparison is that in simple cases, if the cost of purchase is less than the variable cost of production, if the cost of purchase is less than the variable cost of production, then it is always good to purchase and not to produce. And if vice versa, the variable cost of production is less than the cost of purchase, then you should not buy it from outside, but you should create it inside. But in addition to this, there is one more concept which justifies that when you are using a machinery and you are presuming that there is no additional capacity, then this machinery must have been creating certain product which must have been having a selling price and the inherent variable cost. It means this product must be giving certain contribution to the business. And now if इंस्टेड ऑफ यूजिंग सॉरी क्रिएटिंग प्रोड्यूसिंग दिस प्रोडक्ट, आप इस प्रोडक्ट को बनाने की जगह कोई नया कंपोनेंट की आपको ज़रूरत है और आप उस कंपोनेंट को अगर मार्केट से खरीदने की जगह अब बनाना शुरू कर रहे हो, और क्योंकि आपके पास सरप्लस प्रोडक्शन कैपेसिटी नहीं है, तो जो एग्जिस्टिंग प्रोडक्ट है उसको सेक्रीफाइस करना पड़ेगा या उसकी कुछ क्वांटिटी को सेक्रीफाइस करना पड़ेगा. तो जितनी क्वांटिटी ऑफ द प्रोडक्ट आपने सेक्रीफाइस करी उतना कंट्रीब्यूशन खत्म हो जाएगा. तो उस कंपोनेंट को इन हाउस क्रिएट करने के लिए कुछ अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट भी होगी. तो अगर आप किसी प्रोडक्ट को इन हाउस क्रिएट करेंगे तो उसकी दो तरह की कॉस्ट होगी. एक तो अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट, दैट इज द कंट्रीब्यूशन लॉस्ट ऑन द प्रोडक्ट विच इज ऑलरेडी बीन क्रिएटेड, प्लस any explicit cost, that is the variable cost of production. So these are what the variable cost of production. So these are the two costs that you are incurring. So what I am saying, that if you have to compare between a product whether to be made in house or whether to be bought out from outside, then we have to compare what is the cost of buying and what is the total cost of making, not just counting the variable cost of production but also the opportunity cost of making. So here, if I see this example, the product X has a selling price of 100 and marginal cost of rupees 60. It means at the moment, if I create the solution for the question, तो अभी जो प्रोडक्ट X है, जो अभी मशीन नंबर 201 पर प्रोड्यूस हो रहा है, उसका सेलिंग प्राइस ₹100 है और उसकी वेरिएबल कॉस्ट पर यूनिट ₹60 है. सो एट द मोमेंट द कंट्रीब्यूशन पर यूनिट is ₹40 per unit of X. Now, if you further see the question, the machine takes 20 hours to produce. It means if the time is mentioned, then the time in a way becomes the key factor, because here the production capacity is measured in terms of time, hours. So if the key factor could have been units, then we should have compared with this contribution per unit. But as we have discussed in our earlier session, that you have to make a decision based on the key factor, and because here the key factor is time, so this 40 rupees contribution is after consuming 20 hours of production. So in a way, this product is creating दैट इज हमने कंट्रीब्यूशन पर यूनिट को डिवाइड किया आवर्स से, दैट इज 40/20, दैट कम्स आउट टू बी ₹2 per hour. So what is happening that if you are creating a product X on machine 201, then each unit of X gives ₹40 as contribution. But because 20 hours of the machine has been consumed by this X, therefore this product is only giving ₹2 per hour. So we will have to focus our decision of comparison and making a choice as per what is the contribution per key factor, that is contribution per hour, which in this case is ₹2 per hour. Now if I further go to the question, as you see it here, that this machine uses a component Y. So now we have a separate product with which we will start our comparison, which can be manufactured on machine 201. This implies that you are looking that whether instead of making product X, you can use some time of the machine 201 to not create the product X, but to create one of the components Y, because until the component is there, the product X cannot be created. But this product component Y will be consuming 3 hours and will be creating a marginal cost of ₹5. So what it implies, as discussed earlier, that if I create component Y, अगर मैंने कंपोनेंट Y इन हाउस प्रोड्यूस किया, इन हाउस प्रोडक्शन, यानी कि मैं इसको मेक कर रहा हूँ, तो मेरी दो कॉस्ट हैं, एक तो वेरिएबल कॉस्ट जो मेरी एक्सप्लिसिट कॉस्ट है, और एक अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट. तो ये अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट क्या है? कंट्रीब्यूशन लॉस्ट. व्हाट इट इज? कंट्रीब्यूशन लॉस्ट. It means because this component will use 3 hours of production, therefore this opportunity cost will be that because the contribution per hour is ₹2 and because this product will consume 3 hours, so if we exit the production of product X and instead create a component Y, then 3 into 2, that is ₹6 of existing contribution will be lost. So you won't be able to create this much of product X, and hence this denotes the opportunity cost of the product. And whereas the explicit cost is ₹5, the explicit cost is ₹5. So what is happening here, that if you make the product, then the explicit cost, that is the variable cost of production, will be ₹5, and the opportunity cost, that is the contribution lost, will be ₹6. So this 11 will be the cost of the component Y if made in-house. See, now if we compare it with the buying cost, so if you see here, this component Y can also be bought from the market at a price of ₹10. So question comes out to be whether the component should be made or not. So it is a perfect make or buy decision, that whether this component should be made in-house or whether this component should be bought from outside. So the question comes out to be whether it's a make or buy decision. And for that we seem to have done all the calculations, because if I come here, if I buy the product, the purchase price is the cost of the product, that is ₹10. We have discussed it earlier here in the first sheet, that if you make a decision, then there will be variable cost of, that is the cost of purchase, that is the only cost to be paid if you purchase it from outside. But if you make it, then there will be the opportunity cost, that is the contribution lost, and the explicit cost that you are expressly incurring to create the product. So here, and presuming that if there is any fixed cost, then it is not incremental, it is common whether you make it or whether you buy it, so that is not to be counted. So even if this question could have said that we were incurring any fixed cost, for example, say rent of say rupees 1 lakh, so then this cost is common for both the decisions, and hence it will be a period cost, and therefore it is not relevant. So we say it is a non-relevant cost which will not affect any of the decision making to decide whether the product should be made or whether it should be bought. तो यहाँ पर आप अगर इस डाटा को मैं समराइज करूँ तो बाई की कॉस्ट 10 है, मेकिंग की कॉस्ट 11 है, सो द प्रोडक्ट शुड नॉट बी मेड, instead it should be purchased, because that will give you a saving of rupee 1 per unit of component, per unit of component. तो 1 रुपये पर यूनिट की सेविंग होगी. तो इस क्वेश्चन के अंदर अगर हम एक बात ऐड कर दें कि अगर टोटल डिमांड ऑफ कंपोनेंट Y is 10,000 units, so if you make it, then there will be a loss of 10,000 into 1, 10,000 rupees, and if you buy it, then additionally saying it, there will be a saving of rupees 10,000. So 1 per unit is the cost which is making the difference. Hence, this rupee 1 is also known as the differential cost to make a choice between make or buy. So this make or buy decision has to depend upon the differential cost. And this differential cost of rupee 1 has tilted the decision in the favor of purchase. Now, if you take it vice versa, in the same question, if I make a change, जैसे यहाँ पर अगर मैं एक छोटा सा चेंज करूँ और ये जो मेरी मार्जिनल कॉस्ट है, इस मार्जिनल कॉस्ट को मैं 60 की जगह अगर इसको 40 कर दूँ, इफ लेस से, तो अगर इसी क्वेश्चन में आपकी मार्जिनल कॉस्ट 40 हो जाती, तो जो हमारा कंट्रीब्यूशन था, यानी कि इसको अगर मैं 40 करता और ये जो कंट्रीब्यूशन है ये मेरा 60 हो गया, तो यहाँ पर ₹3 पर आवर की अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट बन जाती. और 3 पर आवर की अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट बनने का मतलब क्या है कि यहाँ पर ये जो मेरी अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट का लॉस है, ये 3 into 3 9 हो जाता, ये मेरी कॉस्ट 14 हो जाती, और मेरा जो लॉस है वो ₹1 की जगह ₹4 हो जाता. तो यहाँ से हम क्या समराइज करना चाहते हैं कि अगर आप इस डाटा को नोटिस करेंगे कि जितना ज़्यादा एग्जिस्टिंग प्रोडक्ट का कंट्रीब्यूशन है, उतने उसके आउटसोर्सिंग के चांस कम हो जाते हैं. मीन्स अगर एग्जिस्टिंग प्रोडक्ट इज मोर प्रॉफिटेबल, इट इज हैविंग हाई पीवी रेशियो, तो अगर समरी क्या बनी कि अगर एग्जिस्टिंग प्रोडक्ट की हाई पीवी रेशियो है, तो ऐसे प्रोडक्ट के रिप्लेसमेंट नहीं होते. तो प्रोडक्ट्स विद हाई पीवी रेशियो आर मेड इन हाउस, that is they are not replaced for production. Means उनको हटाकर आप किसी और प्रोडक्ट की चॉइस नहीं करते. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ कि जिन प्रोडक्ट्स की कंट्रीब्यूशन कम है, जिन प्रोडक्ट्स का वेरिएबल कॉस्ट ज़्यादा है, या जिन प्रोडक्ट्स का सेलिंग प्राइस कम है तो सेलिंग प्राइस वेरिएबल कॉस्ट को डिफरेंशिएट अलग अलग ना करके जिन प्रोडक्ट्स का कंट्रीब्यूशन इन हाउस कम है ऐसे प्रोडक्ट्स को आप आउटसोर्स कर देते हो और बाहर किसी कंपनी से बनवाकर उसे परचेज कर लेते हो। और ये बात आपको नोटिस करनी पड़ेगी कि जैसे जैसे आपकी आउटपुट बढ़ती जाती है देन इट ब्रिंग्स अ सेविंग इन द वेरिएबल कॉस्ट पर यूनिट। तो नॉर्मली वेरिएबल कॉस्ट इज presumed टू बी फिक्स्ड ऑफ द आउटपुट, but when the production increases a particular limit, there can be a saving in the production efficiency or the raw material acquisition or labor efficiency. So, in whatever way we can assess, somebody has to fall on the fact that those products which will have low contribution, which will have low PV ratio, which will have low profitability, they are outsourced and acquired from another production house which can provide such products at a lower cost to you in comparison to what you will lose. So, ultimate decision is obviously dependent on your in-house cost and your existing products profitability and also the capacity of the external market to provide such products. तो अगर हम इस डाटा को प्रैक्टिकल से मैच करके देखें तो अगर एक कार कंपनी है, आप बड़ी एग्जांपल लेके चलिए कि दिल्ली के अंदर सबसे जो बड़ी फैक्ट्री है दिल्ली के आसपास मारुति, एंड वी कैन से कि एक छोटा सा गांव गुरुग्राम या गुड़गांव उस पूरे के पूरे शहर का जो टर्न अराउंड हुआ है दैट क्रेडिट मस्ट हैव गॉन टू द मारुति बिकॉज दैट वाज द फर्स्ट इंडस्ट्री which shaped up the future of this small village. And now it is one of the important things, more important than somehow Delhi in the corporate scenario. And all this turnaround started when someone set up the Maruti car plant here. Now Maruti, this car may have been using around 400 500 components. There are such small components, bulbs हैं, seats हैं, springs हैं, lights हैं, ये सारी चीजें हैं, and they are all not made by the Maruti itself. Most of the products are outsourced. That is, there are around 300 more than 300 supporting units. तो अगर मारुति का प्लांट गुड़गांव से शिफ्ट होता है तो सिर्फ मारुति नहीं जा रही है, उसकी सपोर्ट करने वाली 300 से ज़्यादा इंडस्ट्री भी वहाँ से शिफ्ट होती हैं, तो एक तरह से पूरा का पूरा इंडस्ट्रियल टाउन शिफ्ट हो जाता है। क्यों? क्योंकि इतने सारे जो प्रोडक्ट्स हैं वो सारे के सारे प्रोडक्ट्स अगर मारुति खुद बनाएगी तो सबसे पहली प्रॉब्लम तो है कॉन्स्टेंट्स ऑफ कैपेसिटी, जो हमने बोला सरप्लस कैपेसिटी, एंड सेकेंडली जो हमारा एग्जिस्टिंग प्रोडक्ट है, जो मारुति का प्रोडक्ट है, आप उसकी कैपेसिटी को हैम्पर करके कोई और कंपोनेंट नहीं बनाओगे। तो जिस चीज़ में जिसकी स्पेशलाइजेशन है, तो देयर कैन बी सम कंपनी जैसे टायर्स हैं, तो कोई भी कार कंपनी टायर खुद नहीं बनाती, टायर की स्पेशलाइज कंपनीज हैं। तो अगर मारुति अपना खुद का प्लांट लगाएगी शायद टायर बनाने का तो दो नुकसान होंगे, एक तो जो उसकी वेरिएबल कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन है टायर की, प्लस जो एग्जिस्टिंग प्रोडक्ट से कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन लॉस्ट है, वो दोनों कॉस्ट कहीं ना कहीं बहुत ज़्यादा हैं इन कंपैरिजन टू इफ़ द टायर्स आर परचेज फ्रॉम आउटसाइड। तो अगर मारुति के केस में गाड़ियों के टायर आउटसोर्स हैं, इसका मतलब जिस रेट पर मारुति को दूसरी कंपनी से टायर मिल रहा है वो कम है इन कंपैरिजन टू what Maruti could have incurred on creating the tire, that is the explicit cost plus the contribution lost, and that's why tires outsourced हैं, टायर्स कहीं और से आ रहे हैं, तो टायर्स बल्ब्स दे आर ऑल आउटसोर्स्ड। बट जिस प्रोडक्ट के साथ ये रिवर्स होना शुरू हो गया वो प्रोडक्ट्स कंपनी इन हाउस मैन्युफैक्चर करना स्टार्ट कर देती है, जैसे कि प्रॉपर इंजन। तो मारुति की गाड़ियों के बहुत सारे इंजन्स दूसरी कंपनी से आउटसोर्स होकर आ रहे थे, क्योंकि वहाँ पर एफिशिएंसी भी थी और वहाँ पर कॉस्ट कटिंग भी थी, यानी कि बाइक का प्राइस कम था। बट विद स्लोली एंड स्लोली विद द ओन R&D मारुति ने अपने नए इंजन्स डेवलप करे, जैसे कि आप ऐड देखते हो K10, वो नए इंजन्स की जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कॉस्ट है वो बाई कॉस्ट से कम आ रही है। यानी कि इसी डाटा के हिसाब से उसकी या तो एक मारुति ने कैपेसिटी अनाउंसमेंट किया, कैपेसिटी अनाउंसमेंट करने से आपने एग्जिस्टिंग प्रोडक्ट की सेल पे कोई फर्क नहीं डाला, इस मीन्स उस केस में जो अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट और कंट्रीब्यूशन है वो नहीं है। तो अगर कोई कंपनी कैपेसिटी एनहांस कर ले, इन दैट केस देयर विल नॉट बी एनी अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट ऑफ द कंट्रीब्यूशन लॉस्ट बिकॉज एग्जिस्टिंग प्रोडक्ट्स आर manufactured as demanded. So there won't be any opportunity cost. Only the variable cost of production is to be compared with the selling, with the purchase price of the product. Similarly, in this case, अगर यहाँ पर ये अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट नहीं होती तो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग जो कॉस्ट है वो तो सिर्फ ₹5 है, और ये जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कॉस्ट है ₹5 की, ये ₹5 की मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कॉस्ट बहुत कम है एज कम्पेयर टू द बाई प्राइस। तो अगर कंपनी, यही एग्जिस्टिंग कंपनी ए बी लिमिटेड कैपेसिटी एनहांस कर ले, देन दिस ₹6 और दिस ₹9 of opportunity cost, which is tilting the decision in favor of buy, will become immaterial, and then in that case the cost of making will be much lesser than the cost of buying, and then the company will start making the product instead of buying. So the key decision to decide whether a product should be manufactured or not depends upon the surplus capacity. That is why in this decision we have said that two factors are to be considered. One is the surplus capacity. If you have the surplus capacity, then in most of the cases cost of production will be less than the cost of buying, because the seller from which you are acquiring the product will always charge certain profits. So normally when the surplus capacity is there, I am just summarizing and closing the session. To summarize, whenever there is any surplus capacity available with the company, then in most of the cases the cost of production, the variable cost of production, is normally lower than the cost of purchase, and in those cases the product or the component is manufactured in-house. And if there is no surplus capacity available, then the variable cost of production is enhanced by the addition of the opportunity cost, that is the contribution lost on the existing products, and in those cases the cost becomes higher than the cost of buying, and then the decision shifts, not always but mostly, in favor of buy. So the companies are always trying to enhance their capacity so that more of the products are made in-house, and it creates more profits for the company and the business thrives. So on this note, I hope we are able to understand how to make an informed and proficient make or buy decision, and that is what one of the most important uses for which we are studying marginal costing. So one of the applications of marginal costing in decision making was to decide whether to make or to buy. There are various other such decisions which we'll be discussing in the sessions to come. Thank you very much on this platform. Myself Deepak Gupta, bidding you goodbye. Thank you very much.